Orthodox Christmas Eve in Novoluhanske. It's the third Christmas of the war. This year there's an atmosphere of apprehension. 2 weeks ago, Ukrainian soldiers showed up.
Our compatriots have come to town. We call them relations. And now they've come to make war and perhaps get us killed. What's going on?
Just around the corner, the troops are celebrating at their new lodgings.
Here's hoping we all go home soon, alive and well, under peaceful skies. Happy Christmas, everyone.
The unit's captain, known as Stalker, says his men aren't there to kill local people, but to improve their lives.
This town was in no man's land. Nothing here was working. No first aid, no police. It was lawlessness. The Ukrainian army has brought back order.
After months of stagnation in Ukraine's conflict, the operation also lifted the troops' morale a bit.
We'll feel good once we're in Donetsk. Right now, we're not exactly feeling that.
Donetsk, the regional capital, is still firmly in the hands of Russian-backed separatists. And a peace deal forbids Ukraine from trying to change that by force, a deal that also created a buffer zone between the two sides. But last month, the army said the rebels weren't respecting the buffer zone and took Novoluhanske out of it. Just after midnight, the unit's medic, Emma, gets a first aid call. She rushes out. Pensioner Natalia Rulyova's blood pressure is dangerously high. Her husband had heard that the soldiers might help. Emma says it's not officially her job to look after civilians, but she does it out of humanity and because it's needed.
Before, we had to call the big town for help, Svitlodarsk or even Artemovisk, and they wouldn't arrive in time.
The next day, Natalia is feeling better, but she says that though she's grateful for the soldiers' help, it's their presence that's stressing her out.
The troops are nice, helpful, no complaints there, but they will get shot at. And who will get hit? Also civilians, that's what's so scary.
Shooting can often be heard in the distance in Novoluhanske. And aside from the fear of shelling, there's a fear that this town's economy will suffer now that it's fully cut off from the separatist side. Anti-Kiev graffiti can be seen in the streets. We asked the new police chief whether he thought there were still many pro-Russian militants in town.
Yes, I can simply tell you yes, there are.
Teams of police officers in military uniform are going door to door, ostensibly to reassure residents that they're there to protect them and to exchange contacts. They're also looking to sniff out suspected separatists. A lot of locals watch Russian TV, which delivers an anti-Kiev message, often full of lies, but that resonates all too easily in this region's bleak economic reality.
A lot of people are dissatisfied. Some are unemployed, others poorly paid. They imagine things might be better over there. Plus, people have friends and family on the other side.
Nevertheless, Ukraine considers separatist activists to be agents of a foreign enemy, Russia, who must be stopped. To address citizens' needs, outreach officers are also in town.
We're here today to listen to residents' problems and try to find ways to solve them.
The most common complaints concern the new restrictions on travel across the de facto border. Tanya works here and lives in a neighboring village, but now there's a Ukrainian checkpoint in the way.
How am I supposed to feel? I can't go home to my 9-year-old grandson.
Artyom calls to ask Stalker, the captain, about the case.
Well, he said people are only going to be allowed to cross via the official crossing point where the border guards are.
But that's a long way.
It's a long way, yes.
For now, a tangerine is all the solace the men can offer.
It's a problem. I'm not denying it. But what can we do? We can't throw open the border to every grandma or grandpa with no checks. They might pass on information about our positions.
To get home, Tanya now faces a 50-kilometer journey via this checkpoint, where she will wait several hours. just like millions of others cut off from their workplace or their loved ones by this border. Ukraine says the only solution is to restore control over the breakaway areas and end the war. But that doesn't look like happening anytime soon.
For more on the situation in Ukraine, I'm joined in the studio by Anna Colin-Lebedev, Assistant Professor in Political Science at Paris-Nanterre University. Hello, thank you very much for coming in. First of all, what's your reaction to this report? I was saying in the introduction that it's been somewhat of a frozen conflict, not much movement on the front line in about 2 years. Now we are seeing Ukrainian troops move forward slightly. What do you make of that?
This is a very slight move, and actually Ukrainian authorities claim that they're not moving forward. They're just in their part of the buffer zone. So, but in the same time, it's a very important move for the Ukrainian army that have been stationary for such a long time, and I think the army was quite disappointed with this war that doesn't move forward, that no changes, no improvement, no way to win the war was visible for long months now.
Because we hear in the report how this movement has at least given troops a morale boost. Just how much has low morale been an issue in this conflict on the Ukrainian side?
I think it's not so far it's not a big issue because troops are changing from time to time, and the Ukrainian army is still greatly motivated, even if, of course, soldiers arriving on the front line are expecting to do something to get this war won, and nothing happens. They're just there shooting at each other. I mean, not exactly at each other, but shooting at the other side of the front line, violating the ceasefire all the time, but without changing the situation. So yes, the army is tired, but the army is not demoralized.
Is financing an issue? Do they have all the equipment that they need, the weapons that they need to do the job?
I think the situation is much better now than it was at the beginning of the war, with no weapons, no equipment, no training, and no professional soldiers. Now this is a much more professional army with an improving equipment, and well, problems are still there, but I think it's not a major issue.
Okay, so that's what's happening on the military front, if you like. But we heard in that report how a lot of people in the conflict zone watch Russian TV, and by watching Russian TV, what they're hearing is, for the most part, I understand, anti-Kiev messages. We saw in the report that, for example, a nurse went to administer first aid to a local. We have people going around knocking on doors, trying to reassure locals that the Ukrainian army is there to help them. But what more do they need to do to really win over hearts and minds? Because that is a massive effort that's required, isn't it?
I think after more than, next to 3 years of armed conflict, the civil population is tired, really tired of this, of shellings, of this risk of losing their lives, of moving out of the front zone and then getting back to the front zone. So I think the first wish of the civil population is that the war stops. And what we see in Novoluhanske, that when the army coming in, they're scared of having shelling. Because if the army is in, then there will be armed actions and there will be victims. But I think that the continental Ukraine, Kiev, Ukraine itself doesn't know exactly what to do.
I was going to ask you about that. How is it viewed outside of that area? What's going on?
I think the political power, as well as the population or the intellectuals, discuss a lot about what should we do with this Donbas population. At the beginning of the armed conflict, they were perceived as victims. More and more, they are seen as traitors, collaborators with separatist authorities, pro-Russians, which some of them are and some of them aren't. It's a conflict situation. Things are more complicated than that.
So Kiev is less motivated to help them or to perhaps even hold on to the region?
Kiev is really motivated by saving the land, reconquesting the Donbas land, but they really don't know how to approach this population just now. For sure, they want to reinstall the state with this police office, with pensions paid, with some help as help that provided by the nurse, but they're not going much further.
And just a quick word on how you see this conflict going forward. Like, nothing much happening on the diplomatic front. What do you think we can expect?
Well, it's complicated because on the one hand, it looks like frozen conflict right now, but on the other hand, it's not frozen anymore. These last months, we have seen a lot of armed action and shellings on both sides of the front line. So yes, the conflict can go forward and evolve. We are not in a situation of peace process so far.
All right, well, thank you very much indeed for your time and your analysis. Anna Collin-Ledbedev from Paris-Nanterre University.
Thank you.
And thank you for watching. I'll be back in a few minutes at the top of the hour. Stay tuned to France 24.